Good evening, class. In tonight's informative speech, I'm going to be talking about coffee. I'm going to talk about the top countries that produce coffee, how we grow coffee trees, what green beans are, how to roast coffee, the different type of roast, and finally, I am going to go over some facts about coffee. I really enjoy facts. Quick, simple facts. So, anyways, according to the National Coffee Association, there are three top producing countries that produce coffee. Number one being Brazil. They produce 5.7 billion pounds of coffee a year. In second place is Vietnam. They produce 3.6 billion pounds. And in third place is Colombia, 1.7 billion pounds of coffee. It's a lot of coffee. Now, the process of growing these coffee trees can take some time. They first start out in shaded nurseries. Usually, they'll keep them in the nurseries for about a year. And then they'll take them out to the fields where they can permanently implant. Now, it usually takes 3 to 4 years for the coffee trees to bear fruit. The fruit that the coffee trees bear are called coffee cherries. There's two ways that these coffee cherries get picked. They can be stripped picked, which means they actually just take every single cherry off the tree, or they can be selectively picked, where they go tree to tree and pick which cherries they want to use. 100 pounds of cherries actually equals 20 pounds of coffee. So that's a heck of a lot of cherries that we're picking to produce 20 pounds of coffee. Now, there's two processes that we go through to process the cherries. So the first method is the dry method. They literally just take all the cherries they pick, lay out a giant tarp, and let the sun dry these cherries out. Now, they will rake them throughout the day just to make sure they're rotating the sides of the cherries and that every point of the cherry is getting dried. And they'll do this until there's only 11% moisture left in the cherries. Now, obviously, if it's raining, they'll go ahead and cover them with another tarp. But sometimes this can take up to a couple days. The second method is the wet method. The wet method is how they remove the pulp from the cherry. The bean is dried with only the parchment left from the cherry. They're separated by size and weight. Once they separate them by putting them in these large tanks of water. Now, obviously, your heavier beans and cherries are going to soak to the bottom. The lighter ones floating to the top. So they'll rake out all the lighter ones from the top, and then rake out the ones from the bottom for the heavier beans. Then they go in these large fermentation tanks and they'll sit in them for 12 to 48 hours. And this gives them time to produce the enzymes, which will cause the parchment to dissolve. The cherries and beans are then rinsed and thoroughly dried. So those are the two methods to process the cherries after the growth of the trees and the fruit is bared. Earlier I mentioned green beans. Green beans literally just means that these coffee beans haven't been roasted yet, and they are kept without loss of quality and taste. They're usually soft, spongy, and grassy in smell. And we keep them green until we're about to use them, because once they're roasted, you have to use them quick or they will lose their flavor and aroma. So why roast these beans? Exactly like I just said. Roasting them is the process of how you get this aroma and pull out the flavor for all of us to enjoy. Now, when it comes to roasting, the roasters get up to 550 degrees. It reminds me of being at bingo and having all the balls in this little cage thing and somebody just turning it. They're constantly turning it to help prevent the beans from burning. When the beans reach 400 degrees internally, This causes a process called pyrolysis, and this is the production of flavor and aroma from the coffee beans. When they hit that 400 degrees internally, they are immediately cooled by air or water. Now, usually roasting is done when these green beans get to their imported countries. Now, obviously, Brazil being the top production is not going to roast 5.7 billion coffee beans, pounds of coffee beans per year. They're going to export them, and since the coffee only lasts so long once it's roasted, you want to roast them when it gets there. Now there's 4 basic types of roasting. First is the light roast. These are light brown in color. They don't have any oil on the coffee bean, and they're pretty mild in flavor. Next is the most popular in the US. That's your medium roast. They're medium brown in color, they have strong flavor, and they're non-oily. Then you have your medium dark roast. These are rich, dark in color. They are bittersweet after taste, and they start to get some oil on them. Sorry. Finally, there is the dark roast. They're shiny black in color. You start to see the oil on the bean. There is definitely a pronounced bitterness. And the darker the roast, the least acidic. Those are all facts that I found from the National Coffee Association. Now, next, I'm going to go over a few facts about coffee. And these I found actually in a article from Good Housekeeping magazine. I don't know why, but I love finding these short facts. So, coffee is the second most traded commodity. Hawaii is the only U.S. state that produces coffee, obviously. It's the only state close enough to the equator for the right weather conditions. Coffee beans are actually fruit. There have been 5 attempts to ban coffee, the latest in 1777. And that was because the leader of Prussia felt like the coffee consumption was interfering with their beer consumption. New Yorkers drink 7 times more coffee than the average human being. Coffee stays warmer whenever you add cream. Milk actually weakens the caffeine because it's taking the caffeine longer to absorb in your body with the milk fat. And Americans consume 400 million cups of coffee a day. So that concludes my speech. I hope you guys learned a little about coffee, and especially if you enjoy coffee as much as I do. And I look forward to seeing you guys for one last time. Have a good night, everyone.